Hey everybody, this is Tabitha for Some Odd Girl, and I'd like to do a tutorial today. What I'm doing is a 3D paper piercing technique. That's where you layer several stamped images to create a nice 3D look. It's really good for those cute little images that maybe not have a whole lot to do with them, but they're in something. So, as in the case of Teacup Bunny here, the bunny is in a teacup, and we can do some really fun items where we can ground the teacup, so it really shows that the 3D kind of look that we're going for. It's pretty simple. All you need is to first print out or stamp your image about 5 to 6 times. It's really dependent on how many layers that you actually want to get on the bunny. I usually do 5 and then an extra layer as my base. I always have the full image as a base, and that can be in a square, or I plan to fussy cut this out. So that's where we start. Obviously, you need some sharp, detailed scissors. We will be cutting very close to the edge, and then we will be taking a black or a gray marker around the edges. Makes a nice finished look. How I adhere each section of it is with 3D foam tape. You can use, there's a glue out there that is quite viscous, and so it creates kind of a 3D kind of effect. I've never used it, but I've definitely seen it out there. That definitely can be used. I've usually used always 3D foam. I like the black one for this, and that's due to that. With each image that we're layering, I tend to keep I tend to keep the majority of the image, so it's thick layers upon thick layers, and any image that isn't colored, I color it in black. And so the black 3D foam really just fades out and you don't see it. So there's a couple other things that we'll need. I have markers. What I plan to use today, not too many. One thing that I absolutely have to have is I have to have a dark gray. Here I'm using an 8. It's my least used gray, and so that's what I'm using. Black also works, and that is just to shadow out the areas that won't be seen, as well as the edges. I have my colors for the bunny. We're going to go with a brown and then a nice little teal. I already have my card base made up. It's a really cool layout, I have to say. But that way we can just pop the bunny on there and we're pretty much done. This part isn't as time intensive as it may seem. We are going to be coloring different sections of each bunny. So one section might be the head, while another section will just be the teacup, and then a paw or the tail, So it's how many times you print it out or stamp is going to be dependent on how many layers that you actually want to do. You can keep it pretty simple. I've done it with only 3 layers, worked out very well. Or you can go incredibly detailed and do every little bit, and even maybe have the ear, one ear on top of the entire head. So it's really, you can just have fun with this technique. You have to excuse me, I am sucking on a halls. My Sambo has been sick and coughing for the last week, and somehow that has come to me. So I've been coughing off and on today, but we'll work through this. So there's 2 more things that we need, and that is a stylus as well as a thick mat. What I plan to use is this really thick mouse pad. It works brilliant for it, and the stylus that I use is actually, for small things, I use, let's see if we can get it, it's pretty fine tipped, but for bigger ones, it's actually, let's see if I can find it real quick. I should be a little more prepared, right? Okay, so this is my big stylus, and all that was an X-Acto knife, or an art knife that's busted in the top, but this bottom part was so perfectly rounded that I use this for almost all my stylus needs, and then only if I need a small one do I go to the normal kind of stylus. And the reason being is that when you are using a stylus and you go around in circles on the image, you loosen up the fibers. And at some point, you can actually start loosening them up so much that you see the markings of the ball from the stylus. So the bigger you are, the less risk you have of that. Also, the thicker the paper. The paper that I am using is Nina Solar Classic White, 300 GSM, I believe it was. So my normal stamping kind of paper. And that's what you want. Definitely in one of these, if you're going to do paper piecing, that's where you print out the image or stamp the image on pattern paper. It works brilliantly for this as well. But if you're going to do that, make sure that it's still a thick card stock. You want something thick for this because the more layers you have, the thicker this is, and it builds up stability for it, and that's what we're looking for. So to get started, I am going to color each section of it. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through it. But if I have any comments, then I'll stop the fast forwarding and we'll talk a little bit as we are going through it. So hang on tight. I have everything pretty much all colored up. I can clean up some stuff here. I decided I wanted to go ahead and talk to you about each of the colored images so you can get an understanding how I think. So this will be my base layer. So it's completely black. I don't bother blending, just one layer, quick, N8, neutral 8, very quick, done with. The rest of the images, I pick a section. So on this image here, actually I'll skip to this one. I colored the head, and then I was thinking, what is in front of the head and what is behind? And so if it's a behind, like the tail and this little body part, it's going to stay on one layer because those are a little small and I don't want to mess with the tiny little things. So that's going to stay in one layer. And then this black part here is stuff that will be in front of it, so it'll be layered on top. When I go to cut this out, I will cut out the entire image of this part if it's blacked like this. But unlike this part, where I have the X, that will be cut away. So I will cut as close to the border of the paws there. Instead, that way it leaves this head free to be seen. You saw me color this front paw, and then I decided I actually wanted on top of this. So here we have this blacked out area will be covered up by a subsequent layer is pretty much the idea of it. And so I colored the paw on this image, and then I know I'm going to cut off this part and this part because of the X's. Then the cup I kept one layer. You can do the handle as separate, or you can just do the cup as whole, and I think it looks really cute that way anyway. So, and then I know that I'm going to cut off this part and this part as well. And this is an extra, so if I wanted to do the cup handle, I can easily do that. One thing of note, what I tried to do is I tried to, it doesn't work so well for this image, but I could, say if I was just going to do one ear, and I knew I was going to do a paw, I could color this ear and color that paw, and then just cut out which section I want, and then apply it that way. So lots of different ways. I usually have about my base layer and 4 to 5. That's why I usually just print out 6, just as much as I can. I do not use my Cameo for this. I go ahead and I grab my scissors and I fussy cut each section. And that's because I want to get as close to the border as possible. The beautiful thing about the Some Odd Girl stamps is that you have this dark, thick border on the outside. It works wonders for this. It gives you really good, thick line to follow when you're cutting out the base image, so as you know. And then on the other, you know, which essentially means it's very forgiving. So for people that can't cut quite as well as they would like to, me, you know, then I know that on the bigger ones I can be forgiving. Also, if I know that there are going to be subsequent layers on it, I don't have to cut out the whole cup here. I could go in and just cut out sections of that if I want to, or, you know, maybe just a little section there. I kind of like the solid layers in between it, but it's up to you. It's totally your preference. So the next step is to, let's add some shadows to the teeth, which is what I was kind of waiting for. And then we'll fussy cut this out. And I'm going to go ahead and fast forward that bit as well. And so when I have each section cut out, then we'll take a look on how we actually apply them together. So, luck would have it, I didn't need my extra one. Um, so what we have here is we have the different layers. Here's my base layer. Here is the head layer, and this one will be on top. This is the paws, the cup, and then the topmost layer will be this one paw that is hanging over. A couple things about fussy cutting, some tips. As you saw, I cut around, roughly around the shape first, and then I come in with my detail scissors. It just makes it easier because when you have paper hanging off, it can get in the way of the detail scissors. So that's what I do. Also, such as this, when I was cutting this image, always think about, you always want to think about the outside of the outline. You always want to get the outline. And on here, it's more of the inside because you know it's going to be layered over and something's going to hang off. You want a little bit there. The next step in what to do is to take your black marker. I usually use the chisel tip for this, and go around the edges. And this just leaves a very, very finished look. I do this with all my fussy cut images, unless I have a white kind of border around it, which usually when I cut it out with my Silhouette Cameo I do. But if it's a close fussy cut image, I do this with all of them. It just sharpens it all up. So I'll quickly do that. The key to this is not to hold the marker too much, especially if you're using a thinner paper. Say if you paper pieced and you just used thinner cardstock, and the reason is because, well, it will bleed. I didn't bother about coloring in the middle within the cup. It's going to be covered up, so that one isn't that big of a deal, but normally you just go ahead and do that. Also, when you are doing this with the colored and with the black, you know, so like this one where it has on the black doesn't matter as much, so you can go as quick as possible on it. The color is where you want to make sure that it doesn't bleed, so don't hold it there too long. But again, with the Some Odd Girl images and that thick outer border that I absolutely love, you have a lot of leeway there. So, and if you kind of feel the marker slipping, slip it to the back. So, oh, sorry, that was off camera. So there I slipped it on the back, you know, and there's a mark. It doesn't really matter, but that just ensures that you don't have to redo any of your coloring, which is the most nerve-wracking part, I would have to say. Next to deciding how many layers, I try to think about how many layers that I'm going to do. I even write it down, have a notebook that I always keep with me. And so I write down, okay, this layer is going to be that. I'm going to cut it here. That way I know how many times to print it out. Because I try to do the printing as efficient as possible. So with this image, I wanted each layer to be pretty flat. But if I was doing more complicated, where there are more parts like this little palm, then I would cut each section out from the same image as long as they weren't touching. So you can get, you know, 3, 4 cuts depending upon the image on each one, which is a little more efficient, less waste of paper, and you can put another image there instead. Okay, I have kind of big clumpy fingers, so excuse me, and unfortunately, unlike the rest of the Some Odd Girl DT, I don't paint my nails. I don't even do the cuticles, which really shows sometimes. But so, like I said, just do the outer edge of it. It really makes it look nice. If you have to recolor, this would be the time to do it, because the next step, once you start using the stylus, you're not going to be able to do that. So we'll bring my mat over. I do not do anything with the stylus on my base image. This is flat, although somehow I got some kind of warped there a little bit. So this one will always be flat, gives you, hence why it's called the base. So we'll put that aside. The next bit is I only use my stylus on the colored part of it. So I know the cup is blacked out, I know the paws are blacked out, so it's only on this colored part that I'm going to use the stylus. What I do is I turn it over, take my big stylus, and I go in small little circles. And as the, you'll see it kind of curling up. And this is where the fine line is when you start curling it up, this is where you can loosen it too much. So be careful on that. You can see that the, if I do it this way, it's curled that way. This is a good technique for flowers as well. So there. And then this little paw. I still use my big stylus. This is my go-to one. And it's not even a stylus. So the way that is, the way it looks, is that you have one flat part, and then you see that the ears are kind of curled. And when we apply it down, it's going to look fantastic that way. I usually do all my stylus work first, and then we can start gluing it. This one's a little bit trickier because there's only 3 sections, essentially. Okay, so my phone was ringing, so I had to go get it. I'll edit that out because it's really annoying. What I wanted to say is on this part of the image, it's a little harder because it's only 3 small areas. So first I would still use my larger stylus, but if I'm not happy with the amount of how much is lifting up, I would go ahead with my smaller stylus. But I would go with a lighter touch, just a little more. And always kind of turning it over to double check it and whatnot. You don't want marks from where the stylus is actually hitting it, and so far it's good. So the next one is the nice big cup. Very clear on where it is. With the larger area, I go with the larger circles. And the lighter the coloring is, the more often I can see the markings from my stylus. So I always check it. And this is just a step that I do that I think it makes such a difference with the rounded corners, roundedness. It makes it sit so nicely when I'm doing this technique. And we have the last one, which is a tiny little thing, and it circled up quite well. Okay, so put that aside. I have a black desk, so you have 2 spotlights right there, so I do apologize. In fact, I think we'll take this white paper to do it. So this next bit, it is used with, we use the 3D tape. I have that with me, with my detailed. And then for the larger bits, I'll just use a tape runner. So this is scrapbook adhesives. So have base down. I first lay the image down to make sure where it is. It's a little difficult because now that I've used the stylus, it's rounded a bit. So I know that it's going to work. What I do is I take off, I snip off strips of the black tape, and I put it all on the back side. Occasionally you'll see me clean off cat hair. If you have cats or dogs, you completely understand what I'm going through. The reason why I like the tape versus the dots is because I can get a wider area. It's my absolute general preference for all my cards, but which actually stemmed from this first. So I only put the tape on the colored area. The black part will be taped down, so that is pretty flat. I also pushed down my foam tape pretty good. And I take my tape runner, or you can use a liquid glue. That's also something that I use because you can get into the little areas a bit better on that. So it's the inglorious part of taking the backing off the tape. And because it's kind of fiddly, I am going to try to get it on camera, but if you don't see it directly, I do apologize. Just know that I'm kind of matching up the images directly. And since the scrapbook adhesives tape is a little more forgiving, I'm going to start with that one. And just match it up exactly, as close as you can. It looks like, and that's the good thing, I don't have it exactly, but the base looks like a shadow. So on the car, you're really not going to notice it. Here, if we can get you can somewhat see how flat this area is. That's where the tape is, and then you have a raised part here. And as the rest of it builds up, we'll see that raise more and more. The roundness keeps it so it's not, it makes a finished edge, so it looks cleaner to me. But you still feel that it is adhered really well. So the first part is definitely done. Now we have this part, and that's the good thing about the tape is that I can have a larger surface and I can have it small. I can just do what I need to do with it. I love it. And with this is also 3 scrapbooking adhesives. It is brilliant, very sticky. So that away. I usually do this with simple images that sometimes might seem too simple for detailed coloring, but I want some interest in it. This technique is perfect for it. So now I layer up the next one. And again, this is where I like that I have a solid base here. And that I don't just do the tiny little paws, but I have the larger cup on top of it. It makes it easier for me. And so we have this next layer build up. Press that down. And I saw a little white part on the corner there, so I'm going to try to get that, and that always makes me nervous when I'm shaky in the mornings. Okay, so now we have the cup. And this is going to be big strips. I have to admit I haven't tried this on a very detailed image, or even on a on a person. I've usually done it on little critters kind of a thing, and moons and cups. Definitely have used it on cups. The most detailed image I ever did was a Tiddlywinks image where it was holding a giant cake. Oh, and the cake was perfect for this. Oof. So, but Teacup Bunny is brilliant for this technique. If you could see this, it's building up so beautifully. Try to get it from the side. It pops up. Each little paw is just popped up, and you can somewhat see it, how it looks like there are shadows underneath it. If I had white tape or white foam dots, that would show very clearly. So having the shadows as blacked out and then using the black tape has made all the difference for me. And so here is our final piece for the 3D paper piecing. It is the topmost paw, which needs It needs the foam, but it needs a small amount of foam. Oh, there we go. I definitely hope you try this. Take a simple image and only do 2 layers or 3 layers. It really goes fast. It's about planning it out, thinking about which section you're going to have it. You can definitely use tweezers to put the smaller bits in place. So the last, make sure that is in there. You can see it's creating its own shadows. It's just so brilliant. I love it. So that is the finished piece, and then I will just pop it on my card, and then we'll be done. So, oof, it's so cute. If you do create something with this, definitely share it with us in the Some Odd Girl Facebook group. The link will be below, as well as on the Some Odd Girl monthly LinkedIn. If you do it this month, definitely put that up there, and I'll make a point to stop by. So just pop them on, and Bob's your uncle. So there you have it. This is a 3D paper piecing with Tabitha Sandoval from Some Odd Girl, and I'll catch you later.